Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Mayday Network. I'm Michelle Kinney. I'm here with Julie Roginski, and we're coming to you live from New York City, both of us, where we have a big election here, and we want to talk to you today. Oops, what is happening? Hold on. Julie, you take it. I got to
All right. Well, yes, we are coming here to you to talk about the New York elections. And also there are two big elections happening, gubernatorial elections, one in across the river, the Hudson, on the west side of the Hudson River, in my home state of New Jersey, the greatest state in the nation, specifically Central Jersey. And also down in Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia has a gubernatorial election happening between Abigail Spanberger and a wackadoodle named I don't even know her first name, Winsome Sears.
Yeah.
Her last name.
Yeah.
Who thinks Brown versus Board of Education was about parental choice.
What a time to be alive, Julie.
What a time to be alive. And also, there are very important elections happening in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania with the retention of judges that will impact not just Pennsylvania, but all of us in 2028. So please, if you live in Pennsylvania, vote yes. And finally, there are elections happening. Well, there are many elections happening around the country, but finally, the big fourth one that's very important, fifth one, is happening in California, where Democrats are trying to change the redistricting commission from a impartial redistricting commission to a partisan redistricting commission. I can get into that in a minute, but I want to talk about New Jersey first because it's my home state and I love it. And also, AMA, seriously, you guys ask me anything about New Jersey. I don't know much in this world, but I do know New Jersey like the back of my hand. And to help us also make sense of what is going on in New Jersey, I want to welcome my dear friend who has been seriously like a member of the family to me for so long, Tom Moran. Tom Moran is the former editorial page editor of the Star-Ledger of New Jersey. It is the state's, or was before it shut down, the state's largest paper for many decades. Tom is just the best. And Tom, welcome to our Mayday.
Thanks. I'm so glad to be here. I'm a big fan of salty politics, so I'm glad to be on.
Thank you. Listen, what's going on in New Jersey? What do you hear? What do you know?
Well, I'm hearing different stuff. For most good Democratic worker I just talked to said it's about average turnout. It looked like he's not seeing anything that's surprising. When I voted in West Orange this morning, the poll workers told me it was heavy, but I didn't have to wait on the line, so I don't know what to make of that. And then there are the bomb threats. Apparently, 7 bomb threats at polling stations. That I don't know what kind of effect that'll have. So,
where were the polling stations? Democratic?
I don't have the list, but there are 7 of them in Democratic strongholds.
Okay.
Yeah. A little dirty trick. I doubt that'll have much effect, though, right? I mean, I think people would see that as a fake. Unless one goes off, then it could have an effect.
Yeah. Listen, the question that I have that I think is important for us to talk about is that you have a very strong turnout, pre-election turnout, early vote, and also vote by mail. I think is important for us to talk about. Okay, is that I try to stream to Substack, but I guess not. Okay, so what was happening is effectively that you have. Listen, the question that I have is going on that I think is okay. Well, there you go. All right, Substack. I tried. Sorry.
I've got it open over here, Julie, on my phone, so don't you worry about it. I got it.
So what's effectively happening is that you have a very strong, heavy Democratic turnout in pre-election early day voting. It's about a 270,000 vote margin that Democrats have, but it is about roughly what Governor Murphy had 4 years ago when he almost lost the election. And the question for you, Tom, is, do you have a sense that the election 4 years ago was an anti-Biden/Murphy election? Do you have the sense that this year people who are coming out to vote on election day are coming out to vote because they want to change from the Trenton Democrats who've been in power for 8 years? Or do you have a sense that they want a change from Donald Trump? What are you hearing?
Well, as you know, there always is that reaction to the White House election in New Jersey, almost always, and always in Virginia. whoever wins, the other party wins the next year. And, I don't think I don't draw too much into 2021 because I don't think Murphy was very popular in the first place. So it's hard to judge. This time around, I the my guess is that effect is going to be much stronger than usual because so many Democrats have fire coming out of their ears about Trump and are so offended by everything he does. And Trump hasn't done any help to Chitterelli, saying that the Hudson Rail Tunnel is dead, for example, just tells you that Chitterelli, his core claim is, I'm sucking up to Trump, yes, but that'll give me influence with Trump. And Trump just showed us that's not true. Filling that tunnel, people discuss this as a inconvenient thing for commuters, but it's much bigger than that. If the decrepit old tunnels in place now if one of them has to be shut down for repairs, that's an economic disaster for the whole state, especially northern New Jersey. But you'd have home values plunge. You'd have 75% of the rail traffic between New York and New Jersey dead. 75% for a couple of years. So it would radically change things. And the fact that Trump is playing games with this, when these tunnels, you talk to engineer and they say they could implode at any time. This could happen. So Trump is out there, smart enough, I guess, not to show up, but pretty stupid if he wants to help Chitterelli. He's so determined to get Schumer during the shutdown by damaging the region's economy that he's probably hurting Chitterelli. He's underscoring Mikey's key point in this race.
Well, let me just answer from BJG. Does Jersey use mail-in ballots? Yes, they are sent out 45 days before. I'm telling you, I'm Rain Man when it comes to New Jersey, 45 days before the election day. So people have had those mail-in ballots for a very long time. New Jersey is a very aggressive vote-by-mail program. They also have early voting in person also. So there are plenty of opportunities to vote in New Jersey. There's no excuse if you want to vote in New Jersey for not voting. I'm going to tell you something, Tom, that I think is very fascinating, which is what I would have done if I were Jack Chitterelli. I would have called up the White House and I would have said, look, please have the president say that he will cancel Gateway if Mikey Sherrill is governor. But if I am governor, he will immediately move to reopen Gateway. That is the best thing that they could do, right? Effectively to say that, hey, at least I could work with this guy. She won't be able to. That didn't happen. But I think from what I hear, not from lack of trying. And you know why Trump wouldn't do it? This is a rumor. I don't speak to, I did not speak to Jack Chitterelli about this, and I did not speak to Donald Trump about this, but I've heard this on good authority because Jack Chitterelli gave Donald Trump an A, and Trump was pissed off it wasn't an A+.
Oh my.
I can't.
Wow. It's hard to judge. He did say that in New York. He said to New Yorkers, if you elect Mamdani, I'm going to cut every aid I can to New York.
Yeah.
I mean, remember when democracy used to be about who can make the best case and not who deserves punishment, if you fuck with me? I mean, God.
But what I think is so fascinating about this is that Chitterelli, I think, hasn't really known how to handle Trump, right? He's known how to handle MAGA. Like, I understand what he's doing. So everybody is wondering why Chitterelli went so heavy into MAGA and didn't move more to the center after winning his primary. And I totally get the strategy. The strategy is that he was going to be painted as a MAGA guy anyway. So he really had no choice because that was going to be those ads against him were going to be those were in the can well before, whoever won that primary. So his attitude was, if I'm going to be painted as MAGA, I'm going to lean in and try to get those voters who only turn out for Trump, who are only MAGA voters and not necessarily traditional Republican voters. And I'm going to try to bring those people out because I need to expand the electorate, because if I don't expand the electorate, I'm down by 800,000 votes, which is what the Democratic advantage is over Republicans in New Jersey. So I get why he did what he did. And he's been really leaning into it very hard. What he hasn't really done very agilely is figured out how to handle Trump himself. So if I were in his shoes, and if I have to put on my sort of consultant hat, what I would have done is I would have done a press conference immediately. And I would have said, hey, Trump is Trump, but only one of us knows how to deal with him. And like it or not, he's going to be here for the duration almost of the next governor's term, right? The next governor has to deal with him for the next 3 years at least. And so therefore, who do you want dealing with him? Do you want me, who can pick up the phone and call him and say, Mr. President, we need relief in the state. We need you to send federal funds. We need you to open up Gateway. We need to figure out how to deal with the shutdown. We need you to send SNAP benefits. We need you to help New Jersey because you've got a friend sitting in Trenton. Or do you want somebody who's going to be adversarial and he's going to punish New Jersey? I think that would have been a compelling message, but that's not.
I mean, he has said something similar to that, right? Chitterelli just hasn't emphasized it. He hasn't held a press conference with that being core point, but he has his core argument about Trump is that I can influence the guy. Mikey won't. He'll go after Mikey, and so you're stepping in front of a fight. But the other issue for him, I think it's just, to me, I sat down with Chitterelli during his first campaign. This is his third, as we know, lost twice.
Right.
And he told me, for an hour-long breakfast about what a dirtbag Trump is.
Unbelievable.
And I understand what you're saying, that tactically to win the primary, you had to do this. But he sold his soul. I mean, there's no doubt that other Republicans have said, look, I'm just not interested. I'm leaving the party if this is Meg. I'm going to weaken them. What he's doing is trying to strengthen them. And it's for his own ambition. And while it might make sense, it's, I think, grotesque. And, to me, one of the most important things about Mikey Sherrill winning this election is that it would send a message to Republicans like him who are selling their souls in blue states, like, hey, that might not work. So I'd like to see him lose, by a substantial. I guess it's not going to happen from what most people are saying. What I'm hoping is that just as this wave was missed in 21, the wave is being missed now, but the wave now is anti-Trump. Because every Democrat I talk to is just absolutely at a fever pitch, like I've never seen in my career.
In what way?
Of passion.
Fever pitch, like they want to kill Trump.
Yes. And are holding it against Chitterelli, as they should, because, that's a character issue to me.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say this because I live in New York and I sometimes have not voted Democrat on the governor. I've always voted for the Democratic Party on the federal level, but sometimes I don't at the state level, depending on who I'm proud to say I have never voted for Andrew Cuomo for governor and did not vote for him today for mayor. Look, Kathy Hochul, is she my cup of tea? I don't know. It depends who would have been running against her. But after Donald Trump won, you will have to be dragging me behind, 20 horses not to vote for her if she's the Democrat, because I'm not going to reward.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so I think Mikey Sherrill I'll give you a great example. My parents voted today. And my father told me a while ago that he probably was not going to vote because he's really feeling like taxes are really high. Like he's a lifelong Democrat, but still he wasn't feeling it with the Democrats. He was not a fan of Phil Murphy for reasons that Tom knows very well, but also just generally just not thrilled with Democrats. And then so I asked them today, I said, did you guys vote? And they said yes. And I said, who did you vote for? I truly was expecting them to say Chitterelli because they were very down in the Democratic Party. They both were like, who do you take us for? What are you talking about? What do you mean? Who did we vote for? Of course. What's her name? Mikey? Is that the Democrat? Of course. They don't even know her name. They just went straight to the line. And it's fascinating. They truly did not even know her name. They were just like, I'm going to vote for whoever. Yeah, they were like appalled that I would even ask the question, except a month ago or 2 months ago, they were, I think, either not going to vote or vote for Chitterelli. So I find it interesting because they are your quintessential Democratic voters who Jack Chitterelli would have pulled over to hit. He needs people like Roginski's to
right. And what you're describing for yourself in New York happens all the time, as you know, in New Jersey, including me. I voted for Republicans here at the state level, just not at the federal level, because the game down there is full of so many crazy Republicans. We used to have reasonable Republicans, Leonard Lance, Christy Whitman. I would add Chris Christie to the list, who actually did a lot for Black and brown poor kids in schools and in corrections policy.
Your paper, when you were the editorial page editor, you actually endorsed Chris Christie for governor. We did. Right? Yeah. So I mean, you're
that happens, but we haven't, as you know, we haven't sent a senator to Washington who's Republican since '72. So there's that dichotomy there that's at work here in this election too. But I think it is becoming much more nationalized everywhere now because you're not seeing a different type of Republican emerge in New Jersey now. You say Jack Chitterelli would fit in fine down in the MAGA Congress. It's just a different sort. I mean, I don't think people really realize, Julie, how radical his plan is. not only sucking up to Trump, but he wants to cut taxes for the rich. He wants to cut state spending overall by 30%, he says. He wants to shift billions of dollars from urban schools to suburban schools by giving every kid equal state aid. So a rich kid from Alpine would get the same dollar amount as a poor kid from Newark, which, as any educator will tell you, they have a tougher battle in Newark.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't have the property to tax. So the tax rates are going to be ruinous and the education is going to suffer. One estimate is that his plan would cause 900 teachers to be laid off in Newark. And that's from the Education Law Center. And they're no slouch. They're the group that keeps winning lawsuits over the state school funding over the last 20 years. They're undefeated. They know what they're talking about. 900 teachers would be fired from Newark. And this is his plan to relieve property taxes in the suburbs. I mean, he'd do a voucher plan that every kid would get $8,000 as in Florida. That's his model. And they could use it for religious schools. They could use it for homeschools. There would be no state test, no state curriculum. If you want to teach, as one guy says he is, and he used to, a homeschooler says, I believe that dinosaurs and man and women walked on the earth at the same time, that evolution is a myth. You will get state funding from Jack Ciattarelli to teach children that point of view. I mean, this stuff is crazy. And what the failure, Mikey has really failed to underscore that, I think. And also, it's a symptom of how weak the press is in New Jersey, that barely anybody has reported on that. It's a double whammy that way. But how does Mikey miss the opportunity to hold a press conference in downtown Newark, where she's having trouble getting out the urban vote, according to a lot of people I talked to, and say this guy is his plan would ruin your public schools.
All right, you guys ready for this? You ready for this little announcement that I haven't said publicly all cycle? So I think Tom knows because he gave me this column originally. I have a column in what is left of the New Jersey press corps, which is not much, but let's assume it is even read by tens of people, right? I think it's read by more than that, but let's assume it's read by some small number of voters. So I have a bit of a microphone in New Jersey, right? I am on, as people in this chat know, I'm on national TV all the time, including in the last 24 hours alone in the lead up to Election Day. On every major, from NBC to CNN to MSNBC to NBC again tonight. And I have been doing this, as you guys both know, consistently for the last, X number of years, including during this election cycle. I have been also working in and around New Jersey politics for 30 years. I pretty much know everybody on both sides of the aisle. I'm here to tell you both, I have never met Mikey Sherrill.
Oh, yeah.
I will go a step further. Mikey Sherrill had an aide call somebody I know who's a Republican and ask that person what Julie Roginski thinks about Mikey Sherrill. And that person said, why don't you just have Mikey Sherrill?
Yeah, I was like, why don't you just pick up the phone and ask her?
And then never got that call. I will go a step further. I called one of Mikey Sherrill's very senior people who are titled, not campaign officials, but somebody who has a senior title in the campaign. And I said, hey, I have this column in the Star-Ledger every week. You might want to tell me, is there anything you want me to convey? Nothing. Yeah. And they answer. So,
okay.
Well, Jack Ciattarelli, I'm not done. Jack Ciattarelli,
go ahead.
Who knows?
Jack
Ciattarelli, who knows that I would never, ever, 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 ever work for a Republican, got in his car, drove to New York City, and had a 3-hour lunch with me just to say hello. Now, I'm not particularly important in that I live in New York. I don't control any block of Democratic votes. If I were to tell you the number of Democrats who have said that they have the same experience, it would be a very long conversation.
Okay. And that's a fault of hers, but it's also a fact that she's been working in Congress and he's been unemployed and just running for governor for the last 8 years. So he's naturally done a lot more legwork like that. And if I can, Julie, I remember having breakfast a couple of times in Montclair with Mikey, and I couldn't eat my eggs because so many people kept coming over. Oh, I love you. She has a great reputation to begin with. I think it's true that she's run a weak campaign, but this is a woman who took a Republican seat long held by Freeling Heisen, the Republican, who was one of the cardinals, the chair of subcommittee of the appropriations committees. a very powerful guy. His family goes back to the revolutionary period and she knocked him off in 2018 with a very skilled centrist campaign. She was one of the first to call for Joe Biden to not run for re-election because he was too old. And it was her and her friends who were also young post-military and security group that have a group of friends down there that wrote the op-ed that convinced Nancy Pelosi to launch an impeachment over the Ukraine stuff.
Mhm.
So she's stuck her neck out a couple of times. She's also just a very attractive person, and she has a lifetime of service with 9 years as a Navy officer. And I think that I hear people saying, "Oh, enough with the helicopter jacket." I would wear that helicopter jacket every day if I were her.
Yeah.
I think it just looks really
I'm
cool.
not-
And people
I'm not
Especially as a
saying-
woman, honestly.
Listen, I'm not suggesting this is not a knock on her. It's a knock on her campaign. Let me be very clear. It's a knock on her campaign. And she's got a lot of stuff going on. I'm not suggesting that she doesn't. What I'm suggesting to you is that when you look at the campaign of Zoran Mandani, and again, you can love or hate Zoran Mandani. I did not vote for him today. But you look at the campaign that and I don't want to hear about it in the chat, guys, like legitimately.
I know it's common. It's common, Julie.
It's coming. I did not vote for Cuomo.
You said the magic word.
I did not vote for Mandani. We can talk about New York in a minute. I don't want to hear from people.
Oh, boy.
It was a very tough day today. I've never had an election like this in my life. But I will say this, the campaign that he has run versus the campaign on this side of the Hudson versus the campaign that her people have run on that side of the Hudson is night and day. And she will win. I believe that she will win.
Okay.
I believe she will win because Donald Trump is president, and that's why she will win. But let's not confuse that with the kind of campaign that she has run, because it has not been a good campaign. And I don't know anybody on my side of the aisle who would disagree with that.
How would you react if she won by 2 or 3?
I would say that she should get in her car tonight when the polls close or whenever she's declared victor. She should forget saying thank you to her friends and family. She should immediately get on Route 78 and head west, get off at Bedminster, knock on the door wherever Donald Trump is right now, and give him the biggest hug of his life. Because if she wins by 2 or 3, it will be purely because of Donald Trump.
Well, I'm thinking 2 or 3 is not enough to send the message we need to send here, which is that Republicans, when you think about how the MAGA era will end, it's either he'll lose and his big people lose at the polls, or a smaller move. Republicans from blue states could start to flake off. And they have such thin margin in the House that if the message is sent that your career could be over if you latch yourself to Donald Trump, that has changed in a general elections, that'll help.
I don't know. I mean, listen, I think that if she wins by landslide tonight, if she wins by like anything over 5, I would say, I think that will send a very strong message, the kind of message that you want to send.
That's what I've been handing out my dollar bets on. I've been given 5 points. I'm nervous. Every Democrat I talk to is nervous. And I think a lot of them who are inside the game, I hope, are looking at things like the lack of skill in her campaign and her tactics, but are hopefully missing the wave that everybody missed the other way in 21, that this anti-Trump wave takes over. And if it's got to be something like 5 to send the right message.
Yeah. I mean, look, I don't know. And I'm going to cut her some grace here, right? For all that I said that she's not running the best campaign, or her people are not running the best campaign, I will also say that she was in a very tough bind. She is succeeding a 2-term governor who has the approval ratings of Donald Trump. I mean, if you look at Phil Murphy's approvals, they're about where Donald Trump's are. So for all that everybody thinks Trump sucks, a lot of Republicans and independents and even Democrats think that Phil Murphy sucks. The question is, are they as passionate about Phil Murphy now that he's getting out of here as they are about Trump? And the answer is probably not. He's probably not a motivator for Republicans to be like, you know what, fuck it, we're going to stick it to Phil Murphy because he's leaving anyway. Who cares, right? Whereas Democrats feel that way about Trump. So, and she's also succeeding to, listen, not since 1961, we always say this, has any candidate of the same party succeeded a 2-term governor of the same party. So the headwinds for her are incredibly strong. She should not, it's not her. If I were running, if you were running, if Michelle were running, any candidate with a D after their name this year, if all else equal, should not be winning this election because there's an affordability crisis in New Jersey and voters are really pissed off. And they blame,
Well,
but
I think it was Matt Hale at Seton Hall said, without Trump there, it would be a 20-point landslide in favor of Chitterell.
I mean, I think that's an
probably true.
exaggeration. I think that's an exaggeration with 800,000 votes, banked for Democrats, but it would be a big one, right?
Yeah.
So on that note, Tom, you got a column to run. We're going to let you go. Thank you. Love you. And thank you so much for joining and for giving us your wisdom. And I miss you and I miss having you.
Before you go, Tom, where can our viewers find you? Where can we find you? Twitter?
I'm still writing columns at nj.com.
Okay.
I'm writing for the parent company, so it runs in all their Newhouse papers nationwide.
Okay,
it's still on nj.com once a week.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
So
Wonderful.
Find me there. And great to be on. And thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you, Tom. Take care. Bye.
Hey, Michelle, would you ever run for governor? Dana Cottingham wants to know. I vote for you.
Huh? Who's asking that?
Dana
Cottingham. Sweet Jesus. Absolutely not. Have you met me? Just my Facebook page alone from like 2005 would ruin my political career.
Oh yeah, like right, because we certainly live in a world where that's not the case anymore.
Oh gosh, that is true, but it is different for women, I do have to say. But maybe not millennial women. We'll find out. But listen, we have another guest sitting backstage that I want to introduce, and he is a friend of mine who has been in the trenches of some of the toughest political fights, both here in the U.S. and around the world. Eric Koch is a veteran strategist and the founder of Downfield, a communications and public affairs firm that specializes in campaigns, crisis management, and message strategy. He's advised candidates for governor, attorney general, mayor, Congress, and his work has taken him overseas to the European Union, Eastern Europe, and Ukraine, helping pro-democracy movements sharpen their communication and strategy in some of the most challenging environments imaginable. In 2024, he worked with Blue Dog PAC and representatives I'm going to murder her name. I always do. Marie Gluesenkamp Perez and Jared Golden on their victories in deep red districts and has continued to take on high stakes issues and campaigns across the country. Eric is known for taking on the hardest fights and winning. But now he's taking his talents to New Jersey and he's helping with strategy for James Solomon's campaign for mayor of Jersey City. So everyone, please welcome my friend Eric. Hello.
Hey, Eric. You're on mute.
You are on mute. And I don't know how to unmute you. There you go.
There you
go. Welcome. How's it going?
It's good. It's always a little bit funny on election day because, I work in media and communications and everything I've done over the last, 13 months in different races, it all comes down to today, but I have nothing to do really.
Are you starting to get postpartum depression? I used to get postpartum depression right around this time when you're like, oh my God, I thought it was going to be over and now it's over and I don't know what to do with myself.
Well, the good thing is that at least in the Jersey City mayor's race, it's a runoff model. So if you don't get 50%, there's which no one's going to because it's like a 6-way race. It becomes a runoff on December 2nd. So I actually get to continue, hopefully, knock on wood, get to continue sprinting through with no post-election depression because we just get to go right into another election.
I want to clarify for folks. So just in order to have full disclosure, who's your candidate in Jersey City?
I work with James Solomon. He's the city councilman who represents the downtown district.
Yep.
And I met him first in 2017 when he was running for city council. He was the non-machine candidate. We all know how the sort of machines and lines and stuff work in Jersey. He ran against the machine in 2017. We came up just short in the general and then won in the runoff, which was one of the more exciting races we've ever done. Similarly, the machine kind of came for him in 2021 to try and knock him off. And he won with 65% of the vote, I believe. So we're running in this race now against Jim McGreevey and some others. And I've had a blast.
So we're going to get really in the Jersey weeds right now.
Yeah.
Let me just set the table for Eric and then he can go down. So in addition to all the other races we're talking about, Jersey City, which is the city right across the Hudson River from the big city, right across the Hudson River from New York,
Yep.
kind of considered almost to be the sixth borough of New York City, has a mayoral election. And what's fascinating about this mayoral election, two things. One, Eric alluded to that the election will not be decided tonight unless somebody gets over 50% of the vote. There are many candidates running, so nobody's going to get over 50% of the vote. Which means there's going to be a runoff. But also, for those of you who remember, if you remember the gay American scandal of about 20 years ago in New Jersey, 15, 20, I don't remember, it was a long time ago, I was around for it, of Jim McGreevey. First statewide campaign I ever worked on actually was McGreevey for governor in 97. But Jim McGreevey became governor of New Jersey. He then resigned, really in kind of a gay sex scandal when being gay was still scandalous.
Yeah.
And that's not why he resigned. For anybody who thinks that because he was gay, that is not why. He hired an Israeli national to be his Homeland Security advisor against the recommendation of everybody. And it turned out that they were having a personal relationship. And when that all came to the fore, I started blackmailing Jim McGreevey. Jim McGreevey decided that he was going to announce that he was gay and stepped down. Ever since then, I think Jim McGreevey's been doing actually very good work, doing reentry programs for people who are incarcerated. But he's now trying to make a comeback in Jersey City and to run for mayor of Jersey City. Just to put this in perspective, before Jim McGreevey became governor in 2001, he was the mayor of a town in, dare I say it, Michelle, central New Jersey called Woodbridge.
Oh, central New Jersey.
In Woodbridge, New Jersey.
Controversial.
In Woodbridge, New Jersey, and he was the mayor there, and now he has decided that he's going to run for mayor in northern New Jersey, in Jersey City. James Solomon is kind of a younger, he's warty, so I don't know how to describe it. He's a downtown Jersey City guy, and he's running, as are a few other people, but really I think this race is going to come down to three people: Jim McGreevey, your candidate James Solomon, and also Bill O'Day, who has for a very, very, very long time been a county commissioner in Jersey City. He has been around a very long time, even longer than I've been around, which is a long time. And the three of them are kind of vying to see which of the two make the runoff. So what do you think, Eric? Gun to your head now, this day is almost over. Who do you think is going to make the runoff?
Yeah, I mean, I think James is going to make it. I feel pretty good about James making it through. The turnout in downtown is really high. I think it's going to be. I think it seems like it might be a toss-up between Bill and Jim. We're just going to have to see. It seems pretty close between the two of them. But I love the runoff system. I think, like, just generally speaking, I think more cities that are, overwhelmingly one party, right? This is a city that went like 85% for Harris or something like that. If this was just like a primary in June and then you had a Democrat versus a Republican who was just going to win, 75-14 or something, it's not much of like a competitive election. I really love this system where, the two, whoever the top two are, it could be a Republican, it could be a Democrat. It's going to be two Democrats in this case. Make it through, and then you've got 4 or 5 weeks of just like a straight one-on-one election where either candidate could win. I think that's to me that's really exciting, and it's how we could generate some better big city mayoral elections. Sometimes we get these primaries and then super uncompetitive general elections, which I don't think do anything for anyone.
Does New Jersey have open primaries, or are they closed like New York is?
They're closed.
They're closed. Okay. So I guess my next question, Eric, and this isn't specifically for New Jersey. I think this is more of a national party question, because we have a lot of new and younger candidates like James running, but we also have this gerontocracy that we're dealing with in the party as well. We're also dealing with a farther left faction, like the DSA people. We're really at a crossroads as Democrats. And I was just wondering, like, from where you sit, what you're seeing on the ground, where do you see all of this going? Do you think it's going to be regional or geographical, or is it just going to be a push in one direction?
I mean, Ruben Gallego, I actually think said it best. He was like, I couldn't win a primary in New York, and I don't know if Zoran Mamdani would be able to win one in Arizona. Look, it takes it takes a big tent to create a party. This is a party that includes people like, say Jared Golden, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. That's sort of Kamala Harris voter Dick Cheney, who just passed away today. So I think it's easy. I'm big on not over-indexing like one race versus another. Every race has their own dynamics and their own dynamics. You look at Virginia, for instance, right? Abigail Spanberger running against Winsome Earl Sears, she it would have been very easy for Abigail to spend the whole time just like railing on Trump, and obviously she did, but she did it within the context of things that were relatable for Virginia, the federal layoffs, Doge, things like that impacted the economy.
So many federal workers in Virginia,
And in New Jersey, one of Mikey Sherrill's closing messages is about the Gateway Project, right? Trump, the DC bureaucrats under Trump's, command killed it. It's a huge economic engine for the state, jobs and for the region. Sherrill, to her credit, I think, has really, in the closing weeks, has really hammered it. She had Mayor Pete, or Secretary Pete rather, come out and do a press conference against it. So I think what we saw between Sherrill, Spanberger, and some others is that, Democrats need to have an affirmative, positive message. You can't just, rail against Trump, because look, we know who Trump is. We know what he is. We know what he's not. And voters have sort of heard it all for the last, 10 years, for better or worse. So when you make it relatable, when you make it local and you make it specific, right? He's hurting you in your backyard by doing X.
Right.
That's how
tangible example. Right.
Yeah.
Like, this is how it's going to affect your life. And the funny thing too is like that Donald Trump is also local to us, right? Like, all three of us are New York City residents. Donald Trump is unfortunately part of the furniture here. And New Jersey. I mean, he has hurt the people of New Jersey and Atlantic City. I mean, he has quite the reputation for stiffing the working people and the little guy. And I think that also can be extrapolated into these races as well. And the alliances between the opposition candidate and Donald Trump. And listen, I hope that today is this ginormous blowout for Democrats. I really do. But also, I mean, Julie says this, right? You say this, that if Mikey were to lose, that it would not be because of her. It would be because historically, following a 2-term incumbent, it would not be the same party again, right?
Yeah, there hasn't been three Democrats have not been governor, 3 consecutive terms for Democrats of governor New Jersey since 1960. Right. So and Jersey as a state, did swing towards President Trump pretty hard in 2024. So there are some headwinds there.
I know. Right.
And which is why I think her close has been good. It's put Jack in a bit of a headlock where he's sort of torn between his, loyalty to Trump and, not wanting to sort of lose that piece of the base versus saying what he probably deep down knows to be true, that it's like a pretty terrible idea, but he can't say it, right? Because he's sort of, he's captive and he's sort of, shackled to that base.
Yeah. Sorry, go Julie.
Well, it's interesting because you are in some ways running a little bit of a microcosm, or at least I guess trying to write a little bit of microcosm of the New York mayor's race, right? Here you have a young councilman who, although he's been around a lot longer than Zoran Mamdani, but still has been around only since 17 or so, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Who is running against his predominant opponent is somebody who has been around a very long time also resigned, like Cuomo, although under very different circumstances. Unlike Cuomo, I think at least took accountability for his mistakes publicly. But nevertheless, somebody who's been around a very, very, very long time. And the question is, what do voters want in a city that in many ways is a microcosm of New York City? Jersey City is demographically very similar to New York City, just a much smaller microcosm of it.
Would you say, just really quick, would you say people from New York, or what are the people who live in New Jersey? Are they people who lived in New York City and moved there because they have families, or it's cheaper, the taxes?
Jersey City is a mix of both. There's a lot of sort of I mean, a lot of people also live in Jersey City and work in downtown. There's a whole swing of people who live in New York City and also work in Jersey City because there's a lot of like financial offices and other things in Jersey City. So there's a lot of cross-pollination between the two. And then there's a working class that works both in Jersey City, New York City, et cetera. So it is very much it is very highly intertwined. And then of course, like they live under the umbrella of our, monstrous media market.
Yeah, but you also have in Ward F, you also have where it used to be I guess the whole ward used to be, now it's very much gentrified, but a very predominantly, there's a huge African-American community, there's a Latino community, there's a very huge Muslim community. And so Indian and South Asian community. So it really is very much a microcosm of not just Manhattan, which is where kind of, if you wanted to make an analogy, Eric's candidate, James Solomon, is from, just the Ward E version by the river, by the water. But up the hill and further west, you have, kind of the outer borough demographics as well. And so, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens today. I mean, very interesting to see what happens today. I would be shocked if Jim McGreevey did not make it into the runoff. That would just be and I guess maybe just because he's been such an outsized figure in my life politically for all these decades. So maybe not be that I'm looking at this politically, I'm looking at this potentially very personally, but also I think it would just be such a repudiation of the old guard in New Jersey and the old way of doing things. If that happens, I think that will be as seismic as people, more seismic in some ways than people saying, well, Andrew Cuomo is finished, because there's a very specific reason as to why Andrew Cuomo is finished. And Zohran Mamdani is a unicorn candidate.
Yeah.
Which does not exist in Jersey City. But if voters are to send Jim McGreevey packing today and he doesn't make it to the runoff, I mean, that would just be, I think, a signal to the Democratic Party writ large, and not just in Jersey City, to Chuck Schumer, potentially even to Hakeem Jeffries, that, hey, you guys better wake up.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole, people really want change. They want fresh faces. They want, they want elected officials who, can relate to them. They want people who are authentic, who are, deeply tied to their districts. Marie always talks about what she calls place-based politics, right? People who know how to represent their place, and their politics sort of comes from where they're from. So yeah, I agree. I think, Jim's best day on this race was always going to be his first day. And, since then, as voters were sort of reminded of, both the resignation, but also, previous scandals, there was a whole umbrella of scandals underneath him, that, ultimately it was obviously the what ultimately led to his resignation, but there was a whole, sort of wall that had been built up of other things along the way.
Yeah, it's also interesting because, and I know we're talking about Jersey City, which most people don't know about, but I do want to stress it is very much a microcosm of what is happening in the Democratic Party nationally. You have, Jim McGreevey is, for the most part, supported by the machine in Hudson County, which is the county in which Jersey City finds itself, and not just in Hudson County, but around the state as well. And some of which are controlled by former staffers of McGreevey, interestingly enough, because he's been around a long time. So I think the primary in Jersey City kind of told the tale when it came to legislative districts. Friend of this program, Katie Brennan, we talk about her a lot. She's been here before. She won an assembly race running, actually not with James Solomon, but with James Solomon's support, your candidate support, against the machine. And she won. which is pretty unprecedented in Jersey
She's
City.
great.
Yeah,
She's great.
And
she's
so,
awesome. She's really
yeah.
great.
So I think what's fascinating about all of this is you are starting to see a generational shift, but you're also starting to see, I wouldn't say go so far as to say maybe a Tea Party, because I don't think that cohort is nuts like the Tea Party was.
No.
But certainly you're starting to see the same repudiation of the establishment that Republicans saw in 2010 with Eric Cantor. You're starting to see that now on a slowly but surely basis. As I said, I would be shocked if Jim McGreevey lost because he has so much of the, so much money, so much of the machine kind of behind him. But if he does lose, this will be a canary in the coal mine in ways that I don't think the Mondani race, which has gotten so much more outsized attention, will be.
Yeah.
If we get into a runoff with him, we're going to beat him.
Okay.
I feel really good about that.
Okay. Interesting. Well, what do you think about New York, Eric?
I mean, I think today we're going to hit like 2 million voters or something, which is, I don't think 2 million voters have voted in New York City since.
Not for a mayor's election, that's for sure.
Not for a mayor. I mean, you'd have to go back to like maybe Dinkins and Giuliani in '89. That might have been the last time we like even sort of kissed 2 million votes. Something like 65,000 people who voted of the 750,000 who voted early or in the early voting period were completely new registrants. So it's a completely different electorate than any I think in 2021 it was like 1.3 million or something like that. Like we probably hit that by 9:30 this morning when you account for early voting plus people coming out before they went to work and stuff. So I think Mamdani is probably going to win. I think there's a pretty good chance he hits 50, 51, 52. I think Curtis will probably, I think that vote will probably collapse because people traditionally don't like to go, candidates who are normally not going to win in these sort of like multi-candidate fields, their vote share tends to collapse at the end. We kind of saw that in the primary when, a lot of the people who were, sort of polling at 8, 9, 7 went to 4, 1, and 1, and, in the Democratic primary. And then, the real work for him and his team begins.
Yeah. It's funny, Eric. I don't even know how many months ago this was. I remember sitting down at a table in a restaurant on the Upper West Side with Michael Blake and like 10 people just talking about the campaign, talking about what was coming. And he said, this city is never going to elect a Democratic Socialist. I'm not worried. And here we are on November 4th.
I'm grabbing a cup of tea.
Go for it. We're here. There's the whole thing. Yeah. So, and here we are. So, and Eric, is a busy guy. He is in demand. But the last question I have for you is, especially in the New York City media market, I'm so interested to know where your campaign, James Solomon's campaign, was placing the majority of his advertising. Was it digital, broadcast?
It was a pretty heavy mix of digital. Also with cable, you can, sub-target by like region.
Totally.
So we could do cable in Jersey City so that,
that's a very TV market.
And we didn't do, I don't think we didn't do any broadcasts because like you don't need people in Rye to know about, right? If you're going to do broadcast, it could go as far south as like almost Philly and as far north as like almost Connecticut. So it was a heavy mix of digital, a heavy mix of cable, a lot of mail.
Direct mail,
but then, one of the great things about this race is also that like, while we're sort of in the shadow of the New York City media market, it also meant that the New York City media market, because a lot of because of Jim, because of who he was, the Post wrote a bunch of stories about this race, Daily News too. So it got, and then Jersey City itself has a pretty vibrant local media. There's like a few different, online and sort of weekly papers that covered every sort of twist and turn in this race in a real way. So in that way, we were pretty lucky that even though it's a city, of like a couple 100,000 people, I think it's like still the second biggest city in New Jersey.
I know Hoboken's 1 square mile. How big is Jersey City.
It's big. It's the second.
big.
It's the second.
Yeah,
largest.
it's by yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, we were pretty lucky that we have a pretty good, robust local news environment. So like people were pretty informed about the race starting
plenty
pretty
early.
early.
Probably that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That is so fascinating. Well, Eric, we'll let you get back to your very busy day ahead. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you'll come back and talk more about all the things that you're doing. And we'll see you later.
And Eric, we're going to take you up on this. We're going to take you up on this. You're saying Solomon definitely makes the runoff tonight. You're saying potentially McGreevy does not make the runoff, but you think if they both make the runoff, then you think Solomon wins.
Yes.
All right, we're going to hold you to that and bring you back.
I like it. Oh, and Eric,
accountability. I love it.
Where can our people find you?
I'm on Twitter at Eric D KOCH. I'm still fighting it out there.
I know. Same. I went back. I was like, never again. And then I'm like, I guess I'm going to be here.
It wouldn't be the same without you.
All right, Eric. We'll see you.
Thanks.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye. A delight.
Yes. So you guys in the chat, both on Substack and here on Mayday, we want to hear questions from you.
Yep.
Wisdom here on Substack. You said we want a path forward that is true to the mission statement the country was founded on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I saw someone also in Substack ask what we think about California. Like, is it going to pass?
They are, I think it's going to pass for sure.
Yeah. I actually have, I'm not going to play the whole clip here because it's a little long, but this is Newsom talking about this today. It's in that, I pulled this from the chat that we're on, Julie.
People are on edge. People are on edge. Communities of color are on edge. Folks scared to death to go out trick-or-treating the other night. Scared to walk their dogs, go to a playground, go to a park, go to a loved one's funeral because they might be disappeared on the basis of what they look like, where they congregate, the language they speak. In the United States of America today, you heard the notion of a private police force that appears to have taken an oath of office to the President of the United States, not to the United States Constitution. You heard Zoe talk about the fact that they're going to reinforce the number of personnel by over 10,000.
See, and I wanted to play that too, because what he's speaking to is part of all of these local races as well, because every community that has immigrants or vulnerable communities of color has to think about this, because while, the feds are the feds, who do you want to be your first line of defense against them? Who do you want in your, running your local and state governments? Do you want it to be J.B. Pritzker, or do you want it to be, what's his face, Greg Abbott? Do you know what I mean? Like these are really the representatives that we have to elect. I look at Gavin Newsom, like, for whatever anybody thinks of him. He's out there and he's saying all the things, and he and J.B. Pritzker and a few others have been really the only ones on the front of the lines, the front lines saying it.
I want to talk more about California in a bit, but now, Michelle, this is such a pleasure for me. We have
yes. I just saw. Hello.
In the world, former Republican state senator from New Jersey, Bill Baroni, joining us today. Bill is the best kind of Republican, i.e., a very normal Republican. Are you still a registered Republican, Bill? I don't even know.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, letting you stay in the party.
Holding out.
So Bill is like literally my favorite person ever, and nobody knows New Jersey better than Bill Baroni. He's my fellow Rain Man New Jersey person. Bill obviously has people in the Republican Party he speaks to about this governor's race that I don't. So Bill, what do you know? What do you hear? Light in the cities, heavy in the suburbs. What's going on?
Julie, Michelle, how are you? Happy Election Day.
Hello.
Today is my 39th election day. My first was November 4th, 1986, and in Hamilton, New Jersey.
Yeah. Bill is from Hamilton, New Jersey. Which part of New Jersey is Hamilton located in?
the best part, central New Jersey.
Thank you very much.
I have no dog in this race. Like I don't know New Jersey. It's the state that I drive through to get to the other states. But I hear that this central New Jersey thing, the north, south, central, is like very controversial.
There are people here who deny that Central Jersey exists. And they just
there
don't
are
know.
people who deny climate change, and there are people who deny Central Jersey exists, and they're both wrong. Right?
Yeah, they're both wrong. So anyway, good to see you. On this election day, both you and I are not in New Jersey today, which seems very strange for those of us who kind of were raised politically on
the way to New Jersey.
You're on the way to New Jersey right now. Okay, so you will be there. So tell me, are you going to go to Chitterelli headquarters, or are you going to go to Hamilton?
No, I'm just going to go down to Hamilton.
Okay, what is going on in New Jersey? What are you hearing, if anything, right now?
So, I mean, I think if we look at New Jersey, I mean, you can see, this is the technology now. I mean, I remember, again, 39 years ago, looking at elections, like you'd sit in a polling place and you'd cross names off a piece of paper, and then halfway through the day, they'd come get the paper, and now technology has gotten to the point where every 2 hours in a number of counties. But it's very difficult. The joke that Michelle, Julie, and I have had this joke for all the years we've known us on every election day would be, heavy in the cities and light in the suburb. I mean, it's just sort of people talking. And this is the day that folks have worked for, and there's volunteers and campaign staffers on both sides of both parties that today they've been working for months. So in and of itself, regardless of who you want to win and who you support, this is a day for folks who've been volunteering and there's people who believe in Jack, and there's people who believe in Mikey, and this is a big day for them, and they're out there, and they're going to go right through 8 o'clock and beyond getting votes out. And so for them, this is a great day. I think you look at the numbers, and what I'm going to be looking at tonight and have been looking at throughout the day, and leave it to the the Bridgegate guy to talk about transportation. But for me, I'm going to be looking at the turnpike, and I'm going to look at the trains, and on a map, right? So from the turnpike perspective, if you think of the New Jersey Turnpike, and Michelle, you were talking about this is what you drive through, right? I mean,
it is true.
Exit 7A.
The GWV on my way.
Right.
Exit 8A, my exit.
Yeah, exit 7A, and I'm looking at the turnpike, especially sort of the ends of it, right? Look at the southern part of our state, Gloucester County, Cumberland County, and up to Hamilton and Mercer County, where I'm from. These are the kind of towns and the kind of places that Jack Chitterelli overperformed what was expected 4 years ago. He's campaigned a lot in these places. I mean, he's a very Jersey guy. They've run a campaign really based on that. A lot of their ads filmed in diners, a lot of their ads filmed in suburban cul-de-sacs, really purposely done. And towns like my hometown of Hamilton, show me in a couple of hours what's happening there, and I can sort of say, well, Jack is clearly hitting the numbers he needs to hit, or Mikey is overperforming where Phil Murphy was 4 years ago in towns like Hamilton, a big military, a lot of veterans in Hamilton. She's very much appealed to that message. You ask anybody, I asked my stepmom, I said, when I say Mikey Sherrill, what do you say? She's 80-something-year-old. She said, helicopter pilot. So towns like that, where the veterans thing is really going to, I think, can help show me what those numbers are. And the other end of the turnpike, places that Julie and I have both worked, those South Bergen towns, things like North Arlington and Rutherford and east of those South Bergen towns that are ethnically diverse but have for years past would deliver Republican votes. Are they voting for Jack? Like, are we seeing an overperformance? When I was doing politics and running around the state, you go to Hasbrook Heights to like Lovey's Pizza, right? And that kind of is Jack hitting the numbers there. So I'm going to be looking at those kind of towns on the turnpike. And then the trains, Julie and I talked about this the other day, and we have a little bit of a disagreement about this. There's a lot of talk in the Virginia races about how the effects of the shutdown and the Doge cuts were affecting federal employees in Northern Virginia. So I went and looked it up earlier today, and there's about 175,000 in Northern Virginia. There's 150,000 people in Northern New Jersey who take the train to New York every day. Right? And I believe that the announcement of the stopping of the new tunnel between New York and New Jersey to replace the 100-year-old train lines that anybody who goes back and forth between New York and New Jersey, that are affected by, about 3 weeks ago when President Trump announced that they were going to stop that project, I think a lot of voters in those what I call the train towns that run along both the Northeast Corridor, which is the train that sort of goes between Trenton and New York, and then the trains that go east to west. These towns that when I was a baby politician decades ago were just Republican towns, places like Hillsborough and places like Summit and Westfield and Cranford, that over the last 8 years have tended to go more to the left, seem to have started coming back. This is a big issue because and I'm not comparing people who are losing their jobs in Northern Virginia to people on traffic, but like when you're missing your kid's soccer game and you're late to work, or the train is canceled and you're sitting at Penn Station, either Penn Station Newark or Penn Station New York, and you can't get across the Hudson and the PATH trains are overcrowded,
Right.
this affects your day-to-day life. And I just believe that, look at those towns. Is in Cranford, in Summit, is Mikey Sherrill hitting the numbers that Phil Murphy hit and then some, or not? And I think you look at those two things, and we're going to know those fairly early in the evening. And if Jack is overperforming in towns like Hamilton, in towns like Hasbrook Heights, or Mikey is overperforming in the train towns, if those both happen, you're in for a late night. But if either of those go against either one, if Jack is really overperforming in the turnpike towns and the train towns have not really seen the effect, Jack Ciattarelli is going to be the next governor. Or the reverse is the case, and Mikey Sherrill is going to be the next governor. And I know that sounds like a really long-winded punt that we don't know who's going to win, but genuinely we don't, because I think Jack's run a very good campaign. I think Mikey's run an
His
excellent
ads have been very good. Very good.
These are two candidates. They're fairly equally matched in a destabilized political environment. And I wouldn't be betting the outcome. I mean, all the data, we have to admit, all of the data, all the polls, every one of them are all saying the same thing. All the early voting, vote by mail, all saying the same thing, which are favorable to Mikey Sherrill. And we'll see. Can Jack deliver the numbers on election day that Republicans know they need to start? Because I think by most estimates, Mikey's going into this morning about 300,000 votes ahead. It's a big number, even in New Jersey. That's a big number.
Oh, Paul M here. I just want to say Paul M here on Substack is saying there are also more than 40,000 federal employees in New Jersey.
Yep.
Is that true? Yeah. So
Fair,
I mean
fair
that
point,
affects
Yeah.
very affected.
Yes. Look, I'm going to say this, Bill. I don't think you and I disagree on the effect of what's happening with Gateway. I just don't know if people who ride New Jersey Transit blame the governor of New Jersey for it, or they blame the president of the United States for it.
Could be. I just think that
to me.
Yeah, I think the fact that this is an issue and people are focused on it, it could very well move some numbers of voters.
Let me ask you this. If you were a Republican running for governor right now, which you would not be, but let's say that you were a Republican in New Jersey running for governor right now, do you think Ciattarelli's strategy of leaning into MAGA to capture that vote was smart, or do you think he should have moved more to the center after the primary?
Gosh, it's such a tough question because, the folks in Jack's campaign will tell you that it was the depressed turnout of MAGA aligned voters 4 years ago. Had those numbers turned out 4 years ago, he'd have been governor 4 years ago. And then, Michelle, you and Julie know that it was a 3-point race. And had the MAGA turnout numbers been where they were in 24, Jack Ciattarelli would have been governor, and one of the largest upsets in New Jersey political history. So one of the things the campaign made a tactical decision pre-primary was they had to make sure that base of voters, it's a significant part of the Republican base of voters, turned out, which is why some people are saying, why would he do these MAGA events in Cape May County and big turnouts? Because they have to make sure those voters turn out. And then on the policy matter, I mean, any Republican is sort of in a position that they're going to disagree with the president on certain things, and the question is, how do you string that? How do you make sure the MAGA base shows up, at the same time distance yourself on certain issues from the president? And that's just it's not just Jack. Jack is an extremely talented candidate. Like, he's a very smart, really connects with voters. I've seen it, but it's a tough box to be in, and it's difficult. And and Mikey had the same thing on the other side, right? It's like how much do you embrace Governor Murphy in areas that may not be super popular? It's a very difficult for any candidate. And look, it's been a while since you've had this.
Yeah, I mean, the difference between Governor Murphy and President Trump, and here you will actually have me say something nice about Governor Murphy, which is, one for the record books, but he does not demand that Mikey Sherrill say nice things about him the way that I think he'd like it. I think he's hurt that she's not necessarily embracing him, although hopefully he's at least mature enough to understand why. But for Donald Trump, if he doesn't get the full-throated support of Jack Ciattarelli, he does not want Jack Ciattarelli to win. And if Jack Ciattarelli loses tonight, Donald Trump will say it's because Jack Ciattarelli gave him an A, but not an A+ as a grade. And that he did not lean into MAGA heavy enough. I think if you're a Republican running right now, it doesn't matter how moderate you are, how much you try to move to the middle. Democrats will rightly paint you as a Trump acolyte just by having an R after your name. So I guess you might as well just lean all in, right?
And that's not a new playbook, right? I mean, even when I was still running for office, I was endorsed by every labor union. I was endorsed by Guard of State Equality. I was endorsed by environmental groups. Like I was that sort of mainstream old New Jersey Republican, Cliff Case kind of Republican. And my Democratic opponent, this is 2007, ran ads saying I'm just like George W. Bush. Right, so this is not new in politics, right? It's just I think it's more we've become much more tribal in politics now, and the fact that we can look at these numbers in every poll, 95% of Republicans are going to vote for Jack, 95% of Democrats are going to vote for Mikey Sherrill. I mean, I'd have to go back a long way, but that is very, very high in both parties in a state like New Jersey, where you used to have, a significant amount of sort of, legacy Democrats, like in my hometown, that would vote Republican, and then you also had Republicans that would vote Democrat. I think we don't have much of that anymore. Like that's not out there.
Yeah, and for all that everybody says, well, Mikey Sherrill doesn't have much of a plan. She's just running against Trump. Like, I don't know what else she could be doing, because she can't really. For her part, as much as Ciattarelli needs to distance himself from Trump, she needs to distance herself from the people who've been running the state for the last 8 years, which are Democrats. So if you're her, what are you going to do?
Yeah, I mean, and I think for her, and I think it worked in the primary, and I've only met her once, but she leaned into her very strong biography, right? And she leaned into her life story, which, whether you support her or don't support her, is a really strong, as is Jack's, right? Small business guy, was in politics, gave up politics, came back to it. Like, both of them are very strong candidates, very different. Then in one party, you've got a small business owner who grew to a very successful business, and the other, you've got a veteran prosecutor. Like, these are two strong candidates. And I think, we could very well see a close election like we did 4 years ago. And I think that, you can always look back on an election, and I can tell you at some point, probably tonight, one of these two campaign headquarters is going to be a lot less crowded than the other. And as anyone who's ever worked in politics before, there's going to be a lot of folks like I was, decades ago. Your candidate loses, and you're going to start going through. And what's the old line? Like, when you lose, everything went wrong, and when you win, everything went right. Right. Neither of which is ever true. And candidates have to make decisions based on what the facts are right in front of them. And Mikey had to make some choice, because, quite frankly, given the political environment we are in, President Trump is just the dominant force in politics, and has been for 8 years, right? And has been. And his presence, first of all, as someone who owns property in New Jersey, someone who's had casinos in New Jersey, and again, regardless of what the story, and for many of us who grew up here, Donald Trump was somebody we've always been part of the life. So this is, Mikey has to deal with, and Jack has to deal with, and it's difficult, and campaigns make choices. And tonight, based on the outcome, it's either going to be a repudiation of Trumpism, or it's going to be a ratification of Trump. It doesn't matter. It's going to be one of those two storylines that come out of New Jersey, regardless of the fact that it's either going to be Jack Ciattarelli moving into Drumthwacket next year, or Mikey Sherrill moving into Drumthwacket.
It's a shame, by the way, if Ciattarelli wins, that people are going to think it's an embrace of Trumpism, because I truly believe that if he wins, it'll be more repudiation of Democrats in Trenton. That's not how the national media is going to spin it. But let's be very clear. If people vote for Jack Ciattarelli, it is because they're fed up with high property taxes. They're fed up with New Jersey Transit, as you mentioned. They're fed up with higher tolls. They're fed up with you name it, the higher energy prices, none of which has to do with Donald Trump, right? All of which pre-existed existed pre Donald Trump. And so, and again, she should not even be competitive. The only reason she is competitive.
I'm not sure about that. I think any Democrat in New Jersey is always going to be competitive. You got to go back maybe Barbara Buono in 2013. You got to go back a long way to find in a statewide election or even just a governor's race where Democrats.
But since 1961, nobody's ever won, right? So like, you can be competitive, but the reality is, she would have been competitive. It's not her. It could have been you, it could have been me, it could have been anybody with a D after her name. If not for Donald Trump, if this were normal times, we say this all the time, Chitterelli would be the favorite to win this election.
And if you look at going back all the way, you said 1970, I believe, right? Was the last time you had
61.
I'm sorry, 61. In that window since then, you had some of the best politicians, whether you agree with them on issues or not, some of the best politicians in New Jersey political history, right? In Tom Kean, Christie Todd Whitman, and Chris Christie, right? Republicans at those moments, and you could even say Bill Cahill, but you could, who I don't remember, obviously, but Christie Whitman, Tom Kean Sr., and Chris Christie were sort of generational, unique elected official and candidates. And that 3-term thing was able to be broken by people like that, right? And the question is Jack that? And he does have a lot of political skills. We cannot doubt that. But so does she.
Yeah.
She is a very talented political. This is not a criticism, especially for the folks watching this. That's not criticism. She's very good at this, as is Jack. And that's going to be, you think through previous major pivot point governor elections, right? When Christie Whitman beat Jim Florio, it was very interesting that, or when Tom Kean beat Jim Florio, right? Those were generational moment elections with candidate. You may not like Jim Florio, rest his soul, but he was a great politician, and like people really, and lost the closest race in Jersey history in 1981. That would have extended that to 3 terms, and it was a 1,700 vote race, right? So you've had some great, and Christie Whitman against Jim Florio, great battle of great Titan, and then Chris Christie and John Corzine, like great battle of candidates. And this seems to be like one of those. This is too evenly matched. I remember Whitman 93, Governor Whitman, Christie Whitman versus sitting Governor Jim Florio. Jim Florio, who had, we had the $2.8 billion tax increase, and he was written off, couldn't win. And the race came down to 25,000 votes or something, whatever it was. And so New Jersey, but I also think New Jerseyans, they're going to go, yes, it's different than it was. But I think New Jerseyans, as you were saying, Julie, they are looking at property taxes. They are looking at auto insurance. They are looking at New Jersey Transit. They are looking at the tunnel, right? And I just can't quite tell. Think about if you're Jack Chitterelli, you're going into an election with the government, in Washington, D.C., your party, which is controlling the House of Congress. To put aside the question of can the Democrats reopen, put it aside. But the government is closed.
Yeah, I don't think
people who are on, who are getting help to eat are worried about that, right? You've got the New Jersey Trans. It is a difficult environment for any Republican across the country. And let's be clear, Republicans in lots of places across America tonight could have a rough night. They could lose 2, maybe 3 statewide elections in Virginia. They could lose the House of Delegates. They could lose 10 more seats or so. And I as Julie knows, I went to school in Virginia and try and know the state pretty well. This could be a rough night for Republicans as well. On the other hand, Jack is working right to, I can tell you, he's working right to the end, as is Mikey.
Yeah.
Folk, I was texting with a friend today who's a volunteer for Mikey, who comes from a long, great, wonderful political family. And she was out at 5 a.m. this morning, not dropping leaflets in the city of Newark. There is certainly a tension on, just as Ocean County is turning out very, very big numbers, so is Essex and Hudson County. So,
do we know that Essex is turning out big numbers?
I can't say that again, Julie. I'm sorry.
Do we know that Essex is turning out big numbers?
Again, it's tough to tell what's a big number, but it seems like the folks who are on in the old days, we had to get on the phone and call each other and say, did you hear that, Heavy and Mercer, right? Now it's like we have real-time numbers coming out every 2 hours, and you can sort of tell. I can tell you the conversations I've had with folks in Hamilton is, my friends on the Democratic side of that are very happy with where their turnout numbers are.
Oh, yeah.
Now, you hear that every election, but this time you actually have real data. Like you can actually say this many votes from these precincts and these particular registered voters, which is stuff 39 years ago when I was, working for, Chris Smith and Pete Inverso, in my first campaign. You didn't have that kind of stuff, and now we have it.
So, Phil, I know we only have you for another couple of minutes.
Yep.
Let's talk Virginia, because you do know Virginia very well.
Say that again. Virginia, sure.
Let's talk Virginia, because you know Virginia very well. What's going on?
Well, again, I'm not as familiar there, but I have been talking to folks who are there. Congresswoman Spanberger has run a very, very good campaign in a state that has had real effects based on the firings and the Doge firings and the shutdown. But she also run a great campaign. My old mentor and I miss him very, very much, Bob Franks, used to say, "Good campaigns win," and she's running a really good campaign. Her opponent, the current lieutenant governor, has had some real challenges unifying her ticket, right? So the Democratic ticket up until the last 5-6 weeks with the attorney general candidate had been very, very unified. The Republican gubernatorial candidate and the Republican lieutenant gubernatorial candidate, I don't think they spoke for 5 months. I mean, they just didn't speak to each other. And then you've got a sitting incumbent attorney general who is, probably would have been written off to be defeated, who had this comeback because of the awful, terrible text messages that were written by the attorney general. So, the Democratic attorney general candidate, who was in law school a couple of years behind me, wrote these terrible, terrible text messages. And by the way, it's not my opinion; it's his opinion. Terrible, violent text messages about the former Speaker of the Virginia House of Delegates, Republican, and they became public. And quite frankly, in any other political environment ever, that campaign would be over. It would just be over. They were awful.
Yeah.
Including attacks on the speaker's kids and his wife. It was awful. But in this sort of tribal politics that we have, it is a very legitimate possibility. I think based on the fact that there was, 800,000-900,000 votes already cast when they came out, or whatever the significant number, that he could pull it off. Like, you could have a sweep in Virginia. That, especially if if Abigail Spanberger wins by 10 plus points, which seems what the polls say, believe them or not, if that happens and the lieutenant governor Democrat wins by, say, 4 or 5 points, you could actually see Jay Jones become the attorney general of Virginia, notwithstanding those text messages. And again, I think there's a very real chance that the Democrats who currently control the House of Delegates will gain a net series of seats there. But Virginia is a changing state. I mean, it is a state that's got a real red area in southwestern Virginia that even when I was in law school 20-something years ago, still elected a Democrat to the House. Right. And then soon after, 20 years ago, you had a Democrat that represented Charlottesville for one term in office. That would never happen today. Now, I think you're going to see, if Virginia does redistrict, that may change. But I think you're seeing some real... I think the numbers you're going to see in Virginia tonight, especially, and the Virginia counts quick, right? You're going to know pretty quick.
Yeah.
Certainly by 8.
Our polls close like 7, right?
7, 8 o'clock. You'll know. Just like by the way, last year, it didn't take. I remember, Julie, you and I spoke at about 7:30, and I remember saying, looking at some of these counties in Virginia, President Trump's numbers were clearly overperforming where he had been in 20 and even 16. I said, this is not going the way the Harris campaign wants it to. So, we'll look at those numbers out of Loudoun County, Virginia at about 7:30. I think you're going to know. And I think you're not going to know you're not going to go know attorney general until late in the evening. But this governor's race down there, if the polls are to be believed, could be over quickly. That being said, I did talk to a very close Republican friend who's worked in Virginia politics for 30 years, maybe more, originally from New Jersey. Right. And, the Sears campaign and the Republican ticket have invested both money and time in those northern Fairfax, Loudoun counties that will carry for the Democrat. But as we saw Governor Youngkin and Governor McDonnell before him, there's a lot of Republicans in those counties if you can get them out. And the Republican Governors Association apparently within the last week or week and a half put $3 more million into Virginia. They must see something, right? There must be something they're seeing. So, I mean, I think the odds, you can look at the betting odds that Democrats are going to have a good night in Virginia. The question is it a complete sweep or not? And as we circle back to New Jersey, we do have some very active legislative races. The Democrats control the legislature, I guess 52-28, Julie, correct me if I'm wrong. And there's some, especially those ends of the turnpike I was talking about before, where Republicans could pick up, 5, 6, 7 assembly seats, or if Mikey Sherrill overperforms what Phil Murphy did 4 years ago, hold those assembly seats And that would be a bad night. I think that if Jack were to lose and the Republicans not gain some seats in the legislature, it's going to take some real, it's going to be a real tough night at Republican headquarters.
Well, I'm going to just say this about Virginia, and I want people to not freak out because this happens every 4 years or every 2 years that people pay attention to Virginia. And I just want people to understand. Northern Virginia reports late.
Yeah.
Alexandria County, Arlington, like all those places report late. Fairfax County.
And they're big Democratic strongholds, right? Yeah.
Democratic strong. That's where the federal workers live. Those are the communities adjacent to Washington.
Some of the wealthiest parts of the state, too. Yeah.
Well, I mean, actually, when you think through Virginia and you go south, anybody who's ever driven south, you go down 95, as you get closer to Richmond, some of those suburban Henrico County, for example, around Richmond, around the city of Richmond. And then when you go west, sort of Albemarle County around Charlottesville, these suburban counties, are they voting Republican? These were counties that did better for Donald Trump in 24 than in 20. Does that continue? These are places that Glenn Youngkin did very well. I mean, Glenn Youngkin was like the perfect candidate for those Northern Virginia suburban counties. He didn't win all of them, but the margins over Terry McAuliffe allowed him, when he's racking up numbers in Southwestern Virginia, down by Virginia Tech and all the sort of the red part of Virginia, and then also the Hampton Roads, Virginia Beach military. It's going to be very interesting tonight. What are those military areas around Virginia Beach doing? Like, what's happening there? What is, and that's going to be one of the most competitive House races. Let's say Virginia doesn't redistrict. Just take the hypothetical. If they don't redistrict the congressional seats, that's going to be one of the hottest contested congressional seats in the country next year. Congresswoman Jen Kiggins is, I think, if I'm pronouncing that right. That's going to be, show me how does Abigail Spanberger do? And the interesting thing is we all know, Abigail Spanberger and Mikey Sherrill, two very similar biographies.
Yes.
They lived together. They roomed together when they were in the House in Washington. If they win, or if either one of them win or they both win, they are instant national stars. They are instantly candidates that for the rest of their political career will be mentioned every 4 years for vice president. And in 4 years, because they'll just be governor too quick. In the 2032 presidential campaign, if there's not a Democratic incumbent president, both of them become candidates for president.
I'm sorry. It's funny that you say that.
I mean, my math may be off, but I think
no. But you're saying they've only just been governor. Are you kidding me? Barack Obama was a senator for 2 years before.
Fair enough. Enough. Absolutely fair enough.
By the way, Abigail Spanberger will only have one term because that's the
right. That's how it works in Virginia, right?
God bless.
And I would argue. I mean, I would argue too, just because I just remember the Virginia race 4 years ago, and I ran a lot of ads for that race as well. And I remember the school choice thing being such a huge thing post COVID. I mean, COVID really wasn't over yet, but the lockdowns and having parental and school choice, all of those things were really, really important to parents, especially in places that were Democratic strongholds that just felt that they couldn't vote for Terry McAuliffe and saw like a safe choice in Glenn Youngkin.
Yep, absolutely right.
You know what I mean? And I think that was a huge part of that, at least.
Well, I think, and it's interesting because the Chitterelli, the Sherrill campaign has made an issue out of that in reverse, right? In that, they've been running ads, whether it was the campaign or Super PAC, but they've been running a lot on the school choice issue, but in reverse.
Interesting.
Whether Jack would take money from public schools, right? Sort of the reverse of that argument, where there's a lot of folks in New Jersey. And I think that, I think what we saw in 21 was that sort of post-COVID reaction that we also saw in Virginia. It carried Glenn Youngkin to the governorship in Virginia. It almost carried Phil Murphy to the governorship in New Jersey. The question becomes, is that become an outlier? Do we look back on that 21 governor's races in both Virginia and New Jersey and say that was an outlier? That was a post-COVID reaction, post-political reaction, and then things sort of returned to the mean? Or is it a fundamental reordering of politics in these two states? And we're going to know in about, 5 hours.
Well, that's, I think, also the big thing that we have to deal with is the things that affect our daily lives. Like you were talking about trains and school choice and lockdowns, all these things, right? But we are also staring down the barrel of authoritarianism in this country. And we are in very big danger of losing our democracy. And so, Glenn Youngkin was elected in the shadows of January 6th and like in basically the backyard of the Capitol. And that didn't move enough votes, but the things that affect your day-to-day life do. And
Yep.
so it's like, how do you bridge the gap, and how do you make that argument that both things are important in different ways? Because if we don't have democracy, you won't be able to make the choices about your life in your daily life in the future. So it's a frustrating and really I guess fascinating way to look at it too. But
No, the good news, Michelle, and you have to forgive me. I have to prepare for my other world is I teach law to an amazing group of law students. I have to start getting ready for class tomorrow.
Oh gosh.
But I will tell you that, and I maybe I'm sounding, maybe you get older, you start to reminisce. I'm just, again, whether you're with Jack or you're with Mikey, you're with Abigail or Winsome, whoever you're with, whatever campaign you're working on, there's some kid, some chubby kid like I was working on their first campaign today. Right? And maybe Republican, Democrat, you're MAGA, you're not MAGA, you're in Virginia, you're in New Jersey. There's some kid out there working on their first campaign. One of them's going to win tonight. One of them's not going to win. And I think it's incumbent on all of us, if we want to do things to help strengthen democracy, is make sure that kid stays involved.
Yeah.
Right.
There's every reason not to now.
Right. That's like people did for me. And, and I remember going back in 1987, for my second year in politics and working for people. Tonight's an important night for them. I think that we're going to spend the next 8-9 hours looking at this district and that town and this county.
Yeah.
But for a lot of folks, this is, they've spent the last 6 months or 1 year working for a candidate that they may not have even known. And now that it's everything for them. And for those folks, again, regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, election days are great. And I know there's very, very important issues and massive philosophical issues we need to talk about. But let's for just 1 second remember that there's a bunch of folks out there, this is their first campaign. I think this is great. And we have to do everything, Republican, Democrat, left, right, to keep them involved in politics and keep them involved and don't let them step away next year.
Well, I guess we can just hope that they weren't on that young Republican group chat, whoever those steppers are.
The benefit of not being technologically able to do it.
I know.
Most people could probably find a different line of work. But you're absolutely right. Because in 1997, I did my first statewide campaign. We talked about this with Eric right before you came on, Bill. And that was actually for Jim McGreevy, the guy who's now running for mayor of Jersey City.
Yep.
But he was
a good friend of both of ours.
Yeah. And he was running in 1997 for governor against Christy Whitman. He was not at all somebody who people thought would win. She was, if you remember, she was incredibly popular. She was always talked about as a potential presidential nominee. She was the Republican woman, I think the only female governor in the country at the time, if I'm not mistaken,
That's
Bill.
Right.
Just a rock star.
Yeah. She had been the chair of the Republican convention in 1996. There was talk she would have been Bob Dole. She was talk about Bob Dole's running mate.
Yeah. So, I mean, she was very popular. Jim McGreevy came very close to beating her. And
I think that's an excellent example, by the way, because if you think back, and for our friend, anyone who's watching this, who's like working for Jack, in that campaign, I worked on that on the other side before you and I met. I was Governor Whitman's Mercer County campaign coordinator, right? And, we led in every poll, every data point said we're going to win, and McGreevy just kept working. His campaign team kept working, and they just believed. And New Jersey is very tough to poll. So who knows? I mean, it's really going to come down to who gets their vote out.
Well, that is very true, Bill. And on that note, with that brilliant analysis, we will let you go.
Thank you very much, and
right.
Good luck tonight and all the coverage tonight.
And you're on with Chuck Todd tonight, right?
I am at 8:45.
Right. So, yes. So you're on Substack with Chuck Todd and Crystal.
I think it's there's a YouTube. I think it's the Chuck Todd case. It's Chuck Todd YouTube. It's Crystal Liz's YouTube, and it's Decision Desk YouTube. So.
Okay. Well, we are going to tell people.
I will have no new analysis. So you've already
stick with us and not with those guys, but nevertheless, have a great time, and we will see you very soon.
We'll see you on the other side of election night. Michelle, very nice to see you. Julie, we'll talk to you soon.
You as well. Bye, Bill.
Bye. I do want to see, Lois, you said that you really hate it when people like Bill Baroni approach us in upcoming elections like it's a normal political situation. They're just in denial how off the rails things are, even at the state level. He's not in denial. So let me just tell you about my friend Bill Baroni. Bill Baroni, after he stopped being a Republican state senator, went to go run the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey and was one of the people involved in the Bridgegate scandal. And Bill Baroni took the fall for people much more powerful than him. And believe me when I tell you, he's very much not in denial about what's happening to his former Republican Party, or to his, maybe he's still a registered Republican, but to the party that he was once. He was the most moderate Republican you will ever meet. He has not changed. He's
probably the kind of Republican that, like, on a local level, I could have voted for in a normal time.
He's the kind of Republican who's no longer welcome in his own party. So I just want to be very, very, very clear about him. I would not have. I've said from day one that Mayday was never going to host anybody who says that the Earth is flat when we know the Earth is round. That's never going to happen. We will have Republicans on, but only the kind that agree with us on fundamental basic facts. I would also say, from a social perspective, I guarantee you, Bill is more liberal than all of us combined. So let's just put that aside. But trust me when I tell you, like, you're dealing with somebody who's very much not that guy. Okay, Michelle, we've been going at this for an hour and a half. You guys, do you have any more questions for us? Because here's what I think we're going to do. We are going to take a little bit of a break and let other people have a little bit of a break, because there's really no news to report at the moment. I'm going to go do NBC at 7:00 tonight with Tom Lamas and Steve Kornacki. I'm going to come. My good friend Steve Kornacki and Bill's good friend Steve Kornacki. We actually knew Steve Kornacki back when Steve Kornacki was literally crashing on my couch because he was so broke. And you want to know what a sweet and wonderful guy Steve Kornacki is. When my son was born in 2012, and Steve Kornacki was, when I say broke, I mean broke with a capital B. It was right before he got his contract at MSNBC, but he was just not making any money. Steve Kornacki took the $5.50 that he probably had in his bank account, went down to Kids R Us in Union Square, and bought my son a present when my son was born. That is something that, like, that is the kind of wonderful guy he is. For anybody who ever watch him on TV, like, understand.
The most energetic. Didn't he, like, have a broken finger or something, and he, like, kept going? And
let me tell you something about Steve. Like, what you see on TV, as awesome as you might think he is on TV, is not even, doesn't even scratch the surface of what an awesome human being is.
I would imagine. I mean, he's a very reserved version. I mean, like, just in terms of personality.
He's that way in real life. Like, he's what you see. This is not a guy who gets effusive or whatever else. He is exactly the way he is on TV in real life. He's just a deeply wonderful, kind, humble guy. I have been out to dinner with him where people come up to him and they're like, "Hey, Steve Kornacki, oh my God, can I get a selfie?" And he's always, like, shocked that people actually like he's just.
I know a young staffer actually in DC who dressed up as him for Halloween when he was younger, and I think Steve put it up on TV or something.
Oh, maybe.
I'll have to show it to you. This kid is super funny. I would hire him in a second if I could. But you know, and I remember watching Connie Chung, like, gush over him. I don't know if you remember that interview. No. She was, like, gushing over him, and he was, like, kind of almost embarrassed, like, how much she loved him. But it's true. It's just, you know, there's certain things you look for and you can count on election day, and one of them is Steve Kornacki.
But not anymore on MSNBC. So Steve Kornacki has now, MSNBC.
Oh, right. So he's over at NBC.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, MSNBC and NBC had a little bit of a divorce. And Steve
MS Now. I'm like, that sounds not right.
So Steve is now with NBC. A lot of other people stayed with MS, but he's now with NBC. So I will be on with him and Tom Lamas, who's the anchor of the NBC Nightly News, and a few other people at 7 p.m. tonight.
Is that digital? Is it NBC digital or is it on TV?
Yeah, it's digital. They're never going to blow out.
Okay.
Yeah, they're never going to blow out the network for these elections, but it is digital, so you can watch it at NBC Digital. John Donahue, if you wrote a haiku about Steve Kornacki, if you want to send it along, I'm sure I can share it with him tonight.
That would be great.
Let me tell you another great Steve Kornacki story. My son has a friend or a schoolmate who apparently is a massive Steve Kornacki fan. God knows why, when he was like in 5th grade, obsessed with Steve Kornacki. He was over and somehow told me this. I called Steve Kornacki and I said, hey, Steve, I've got this kid. He's like 10. He's like really into you. Get on the phone. Steve Kornacki was driving up to Massachusetts or somewhere to go see his sister in New England. I think it was Massachusetts from. He said, hang on. He pulled over on the side of the road with like cars whizzing by him and literally FaceTime this kid. Like,
He's one of the good ones.
Love does not begin to describe how.
And also, when I learned that he loves game shows, I was like, oh, I see.
Yeah. I mean, we could do a whole separate daily dispatch on my love for Steve Kornacki. He's fantastic.
Well, speaking of things that we should talk about, and we're not going to talk about them now, hopefully when we come back, I would really love to talk just briefly then. So please come back for this conversation. Marjorie Taylor Greene was on The View today.
Yes.
The View. And let me tell you, she sounded normal. She sounded okay. Like, I haven't watched all of it yet, so I don't really. I watched a lot of her, not the ladies, but I mean that's that for a person like Marjorie Taylor Greene could be walking into the lion's den in that kind of environment on The View. But I'm sure there was some sort of agreement and also a welcoming of her, because they're saying, hey, she's speaking truth to things that matter. For whatever reason, well, whether it's self-serving or not, we should give her the platform to speak to a bigger audience. And I think that was the right thing to do.
Well,
so we can talk about that later.
I'm going to say 2 things about that. One is we could talk about it next time, but I will say that ABC has made it clear to the View folks that they need to have need to expand the tent and not just be what is the perception is, which is just a liberal, welcome committee, but going after Republicans.
This is again where I'm just like, we are staring down the barrel of authoritarianism. Like, I sent you that thing this morning. Ian Bremmer, Ian Bremmer, he tweeted this morning and said, Republicans calling Mamdani a communist is as bad or is of the same head as Democrats calling Trump a fascist. I'm like, I'm sorry, what?
Ian Bremmer said
yes.
All right, I don't have time for that. You know what? Listen.
I know this is what I'm saying. It's just like, anyways.
Listen to me.
We can talk more about it later. I just thought it was really interesting, and I just want to put a pin in that.
Here's what we're gonna do. We are gonna have BJG. Yes, we are. We're gonna be back at around 8 p.m. or whenever.
Yeah.
NBC.
Like and subscribe. You'll be the first to know.
Like and subscribe. Maybe not quite at 8, but we will be back. We will be here for the, I don't know about the duration, but we will be here as returns come back. Now, before we come back, Virginia's polls will be closed at 7 p.m. And so I don't know whether there'll be. Listen, if Virginia is called early tonight, if it's called before we come back on around 8, this is going to be a blowout around the country. Yeah. That's going to be a huge repudiation, because typically, as I said, Northern Virginia, Fairfax County, Alexandria, all those places, they don't necessarily come back right away. If they call this quickly, that means that the counties
without them, right,
without them, that the counties that are swing counties like Loudoun County and others, Albemarle County, which is a Republican county, Charlottesville is the little blue dot in the middle of Albemarle County that Bill referenced. If those counties underperform for Republicans, or if Democrats win Loudoun County, places like that, that'll tell the tale. So we will know. We will see you guys in a few hours. I'm going to go get ready to do this NBC thing, deal with some family stuff, and we will both see you not many hours from now, several hours from now, to our friends in Australia.
About 4 hours from now. Everybody go drink water, caffeinate yourselves, take a nap, walk your dog, and we'll see you back here then.
To our friends on the West Coast, if you have not, to our friends everywhere, if you have not yet voted and you're in a state where you need to vote, please do that. If you are in California, please vote for Prop 50. If you are in Pennsylvania, please vote yes for the retention of the judges. Obviously, you know what to do if you're in New York, New Jersey, New York City, New Jersey, or Virginia. Thank you so much for joining us for the last couple of hours. It's been so wonderful.
Yeah, this is great. We have a
And-
huge audience, by the way, on Substack. I'm looking at this. We have over 500 people tuning in there as well. So we just want to thank everyone from all the platforms.
Yeah. And we will see you guys. Oh, in Maine. I'm so sorry. You guys, if you live in Maine, they're trying to push through a couple of voter ID referenda that are gonna be really bad.
Oh, I didn't know this. I have a
No
friend in Maine. I'll have to text her.
No good. No good. So if you're in Maine, please go vote. Vote this down. Trust me on this. You do not want to be showing voter ID when it is expensive.
Mm,
It is very hard to get, and especially if you live in rural Maine.
yeah.
Good luck to you when your driver's license expires and you're trying to get to the DMV or your passport expires.
Voter
And
suppression. It's
happen.
voter suppression.
Voter suppression. There's no such thing as widespread voter fraud. This is their way of trying to suppress traditionally Democratic people because they, from voting. So Maine, no, don't do it.
Yeah.
Okay. See everybody in a few hours, and we'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.
On the other side. Bye.